Before we begin, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and by subscribing, you'll make sure our exciting stories show up right in your feed whenever a new adventure begins. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Now, let's set the stage. Imad, our unlikely protagonist, drifts through the cold void of space, his mind still echoing with the final transmission from the Galactic Council. Their words, though diplomatic, are unmistakably clear: the Austrian contribution to the Intergalactic Alliance is considered insufficient. In simpler terms, his species, fragile and weak, wasn't worth protecting. But why had humanity chosen to stand by them when all others had abandoned them? Stay tuned as we explore the answers to these questions and more in the chapters ahead. Don't forget to subscribe, this is just the beginning. Imad's journey begins. One by one, the once reliable allies had turned their backs, each retreating into their own territories, citing reasons like resource limitations, shifting strategic priorities, or simple indifference. The once strong coalition, now fragmented, had deemed the Austrian species too weak to defend, too insignificant to protect. Yet, as the world around him seemed to crumble, there was one force that stood firm: humanity. Humanity, a species neither the strongest nor the most advanced in technology, had not only maintained their alliance with the Austrians, but had deepened it. They had chosen to stand by them, even as all others withdrew, vowing to protect their world, their people, and the shared space they both called home. For reasons unknown to Imad, humanity had cast their lot with a species others had deemed expendable. It was this unwavering support, this perplexing and bold decision, that had brought Imad here, to this very moment. Nervously, he stood at the threshold of his ship, staring out at the looming human station, Delta 7, the last sanctuary, the final hope for the Austrians. His mission was critical, but the weight of it pressed on him like an unrelenting storm. Every fiber of his being felt the unfamiliar tension as the ship's systems hummed around him. His body, naturally soft and slimy, was ill-suited for the dry, sterile environments of human technology. His environmental suit, a necessary compromise, worked overtime to regulate the moisture levels in the air, but it could not fully calm his restless mind. The thick, mucus-covered skin that protected him from the harshness of space felt suffocating in the suit, clinging to the fabric with an unnatural weight. Each movement sent a ripple of discomfort through his body, a constant reminder that he was far from his comfort zone. The anxiety was palpable, crawling beneath his surface like a living thing, his every breath slightly strained, his heart racing with uncertainty. He had always been aware of the gulf between the human and Austrian species, but now, standing at the threshold of this unknown, that gap seemed more vast than ever. As the airlock opened, the familiar hum of the ship's systems fell away, leaving only the tense silence of space behind him. The moment of disembarkation was now upon him, and as his feet hit the solid surface of Delta 7, a new chapter began. He knew this would be no ordinary visit, this was no simple diplomatic meeting. This was a test of faith, of survival, of alliances stretched to their breaking point. What he would find here could change everything, for both the Austrians and humanity. The mystery of why humanity had chosen to stand with them, even when all others had abandoned them, was a question that weighed heavily on his mind. And perhaps, just perhaps, the answer lay within this very station: the sensation of stepping into an alien world, of placing his trust in a species that had promised to protect him, left Imad with an uneasy sense of both dread and hope. This journey was more than a mere mission, it was a confrontation with the unknown, an exploration of why, and more importantly, how, humanity's commitment to the Austrians had been formed. The station stretched out before him, filled with strange sounds and unfamiliar energies. Each movement through the airlock, each breath he took, seemed to echo with significance. And yet, despite the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the overwhelming weight of his mission, Imad could not help but wonder, what if the answers he sought would not only reveal why humanity had chosen to stand with his people but also show him something far more profound? What if, in this place, he would not only learn the truth about alliances but also uncover the very heart of what made humanity different, and perhaps, the key to Austria's survival? As the final seal of the airlock clicked shut behind him, the question remained unanswered, but the journey ahead promised to provide the most crucial answers he would ever discover. Imed's first impressions of humanity. The airlock's massive doors groaned as they cycled open, and with that sound, a strange new world greeted Imed. His antennae twitched instinctively, sensing the faintest of vibrations traveling through the station's inner walls. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The rhythmic pulses, so familiar and soothing back on his own Austrian station, were absent here. Instead, the vibrations were sharp, jagged, almost like the beat of massive, relentless machinery. The hum of the station vibrated in a way that was foreign to his senses, harder and rougher than the gentle pulse he had grown used to. There was something raw about it, something unsettling that made him pause and take a deep breath. As the final airlock seal released with a sharp hiss, the door swung open to reveal a vast reception area. Imed's multi-lensed eyes scanned the space with a mix of wonder and wariness. The environment seemed to contradict itself at every turn. It was both imposing and strangely welcoming. The humans, for all their efficiency and engineering prowess, had tried to soften the sharpness of their natural inclinations toward pure functionality. Small, carefully tended plants decorated the area, their lush greenery offering a stark contrast to the harsh, utilitarian design of the walls. Warm-toned wooden panels adorned the surfaces, a soft touch meant to put visitors at ease. But even these human efforts couldn't completely mask the utilitarian core of the space. Beneath the aesthetically pleasing details, the true nature of the station was inescapable. The walls, reinforced with military-grade materials, were solid and unyielding. Every corner seemed to exude a quiet, unsettling strength. The hard lines and heavy structures reminded Imed that, despite the soft touches, this place was designed for function over comfort, for survival over decoration. There was no doubt, this was a human station, practical to its very core. Even the faintest details, like the placement of the furniture and the subtle positioning of the lighting, carried an unmistakable air of precision, yet, despite the evident strength, there was something about this place that tugged at Imed's curiosity. It wasn't just the unfamiliar sensations beneath his skin or the strange hum of the walls. It was the atmosphere itself, charged with an energy that felt different from the quiet elegance of Austrian designs. There was a rawness here, a sense of power beneath the surface, almost as if humanity's entire existence had been built on a foundation of constant, unyielding struggle. It made Imed uneasy, but it also intrigued him. As he took his first few hesitant steps into the station, his antennae flicked nervously, still processing the sensory overload. He couldn't help but feel a shiver of anticipation. Everything in this place felt so alive, but in a way that was foreign and unknown. It was as if he had stepped into the heart of something much larger than himself, something that had survived against all odds and evolved in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. Despite the discomfort, despite the looming uncertainty, Imed knew that this strange station, with its rough edges and subtle warmth, held the key to understanding humanity's choice to stand by his species. But whether that key would unlock the answers he so desperately sought, or whether it would only lead to deeper questions, was something he couldn't yet know. The reception party, Captain Lucas and Ambassador Rello were waiting for Imed as he entered the reception area. At first glance, their presence was striking. Imed couldn't help but marvel at their rigid posture, the precise alignment of their bodies as they stood tall, almost like statues. Their movements were so sharp, so controlled, as though every action had been meticulously planned. It was a stark contrast to the flowing, fluid locomotion of his own species. Where Imed's movements were smooth and organic, theirs were angular, deliberate, and somehow mechanical. It was as if they were designed to cut through space with efficiency, while Imed's form seemed built for grace, for movement without resistance. Captain Lucas was the first to catch his attention. Dressed in the crisp, pristine uniform of the human space force, his dark hair was pulled back in a tight, disciplined style that seemed to speak to the very essence of military precision. The captain's posture was rigid, his gaze unwavering. There was an air of authority in the way he stood, one that Imed couldn't ignore. And then there was Ambassador Rello, whose attire was notably softer, more formal by human standards, yet still clearly indicative of the weight of his position. His suit was refined but lacked the military rigidity of Lucas's uniform, offering a gentler presence. Still, the formality was unmistakable. There was no mistaking that Rello, too, carried a quiet power, one that balanced diplomacy with duty. It was Ambassador Rello who stepped forward to greet Imad, his movements smooth but purposeful. The greeting was accompanied by what Imad had come to recognize as a human smile. It was a gesture of warmth, yet, to Imad, it still held an unsettling edge. The way the corners of Rello's mouth curved upward, the slight gleam in his eyes, it almost seemed like a silent challenge. To Imad's instincts, it felt like a threat masked in politeness, a sharp reminder that despite their outward friendliness, humans were creatures capable of danger. Nevertheless, Imad kept his composure. His antennae twitched, taking in every subtle movement, every detail. There was something about the humans that intrigued him. Something beyond the surface-level courtesy. As he moved to acknowledge them, a faint sense of unease lingered in his mind. What was it about their posture, their gaze, that made him feel so uncertain? The diplomatic niceties were a ritual he had grown familiar with, yet there was something about these humans that made him second-guess his own understanding of such encounters. The briefing room, Imad moved forward with a sense of dignity, his environmental suit's locomotion assist helping him maintain a professional bearing, even as the discomfort of his alien physiology tugged at him. His body, encased in the suit, moved with purpose, but there was an underlying tension in his every step. The weight of the mission he carried, the uncertainty of what lay ahead, was never far from his thoughts. As they passed through the corridors, Imad couldn't help but notice the human duo, Captain Lucas and Ambassador Rello, adjusting their pace to match his slower, more deliberate movements. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Humans were creatures of speed, efficiency, and precision, and yet here they were, consciously moderating their pace to accommodate him. It was a strange, almost humbling gesture. It reminded Imad once again of the stark differences between their species. While the humans seemed to live in a world that demanded constant motion, Imad's people had evolved to move with fluidity and grace, adapting to the rhythms of their environment rather than forcing it into their own patterns. The corridors were utilitarian yet strangely welcoming. The lighting was efficient, casting a soft glow against the grayish metal walls, and though the space was designed for functionality, there was a sense of order to it that made Imad feel oddly at ease. His suit's sensors registered every detail, every vibration in the air. Even the way the humans walked, the soft click of their boots against the metal floor, seemed carefully measured, a steady cadence that matched the station's inner rhythm. When they finally reached the primary briefing room, Imad noticed the stark contrast between the practical military design of the facility and the human attempts at comfort. The walls were lined with robust communication equipment, reinforced and built to withstand the rigors of military operations. Yet, even here, the humans had made an effort to soften the edges. The lighting was calibrated to avoid straining his sensitive eyes, and the furniture, though clearly utilitarian, was carefully arranged to allow for a comfortable, functional meeting space. They offered Imad the option to rest, but he declined. The weight of the mission pressed heavily upon him, and he knew there was no time to waste. He needed answers, and he needed them now. He couldn't afford to delay, not when so much was at stake. Instead, he nodded and motioned for them to proceed with the briefing. As they moved deeper into the station, Imad's thoughts were consumed by the questions that had brought him here. Why had humanity chosen to stand by his people when all others had abandoned them? What was it about the humans that made them different, made them willing to fight for the Austrians even when there was little to gain? These thoughts swirled in his mind as they continued down the hall, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the quiet space. The human duo, Captain Lucas and Ambassador Rello, continued to match his pace. Their movements graceful in their own right, yet starkly different from his own. Each step was a reminder that though they shared this space, they were worlds apart in more ways than one. Military facilities, the briefing room was a striking blend of practicality and technology. Imid's multi-lensed eyes scanned the space with a keen sense of curiosity. The walls were lined with robust communication equipment, reinforced furniture, and military-grade utilities designed to withstand the chaos of any emergency. Yet, there was something about the space that set it apart from what he had come to expect from other galactic stations. The lighting, for instance, was adjusted carefully to reduce strain on his light-sensitive eyes, an effort that did not go unnoticed. The human attention to detail was subtle but thoughtful, a gesture of consideration for his species' unique needs. But the most surprising feature was something far more unexpected, a support cradle, fully adapted for his body structure. It was an elegant solution, designed with his species' physiology in mind. The cradle's contours matched his form perfectly, allowing him to settle into it with ease and comfort. Imid's antennae twitched in silent appreciation. He had expected some form of accommodation, but nothing so carefully tailored to his species. It spoke volumes about the human's willingness to go the extra mile, not just in terms of diplomacy, but in truly understanding the needs of their allies. As he settled into the cradle, his thoughts were interrupted by the subtle vibrations that began to ripple through the station's walls. His antennae, sensitive to the slightest movements, detected the steady rhythm of personnel moving through the station. The vibrations were more pronounced now, the heavy steps of the crew echoing through the structure like distant thunder. Imid instinctively stiffened, his antennae twitching to catch every nuance of the sounds. The station was alive with activity, its pulse quickening as the human personnel carried out their duties. A brief lull followed the exchange of pleasantries. Imid rested, his mind wandering as he tried to process all the information he had absorbed thus far. But it wasn't long before Captain Lucas, ever efficient, broke the silence. He suggested combining the security briefing with a tour of the key facilities, specifically the training simulation center. It was a natural progression, and Imid, eager to understand more about the humans, agreed without hesitation. This, he knew, would be crucial in unraveling the mystery of why humanity had chosen to stand with his people when no one else had. Human warfare. As they made their way through the station, the corridors seemed to stretch on endlessly, leading them toward a new chapter in their journey, the training simulation center. Imid couldn't help but be fascinated by what he saw as they passed several training rooms. Each one was a flurry of motion, of humans working in concert with technology, seamlessly integrating their bodies into the combat protocols. Unlike the automated systems used by the Austrian Defense Forces, which relied heavily on machinery and robotic precision, the humans appeared to function as a hybrid of organic instinct and mechanical augmentation. Imid's antennae flicked in intrigue, watching as humans executed complex maneuvers with startling speed and precision. Their movements were fluid, but there was an undeniable rhythm to them, a kind of chaotic order that seemed foreign to Imid's understanding of combat. There was something primal about it, a sense that the humans were not simply relying on their machines, but on themselves, their intuition, their adaptability, and their willingness to push their bodies to the limit. It was a stark contrast to the cold, calculated approach his own species often employed. Captain Lucas seemed to sense Imid's fascination and took the opportunity to explain their military philosophy. He spoke with quiet pride about humanity's approach to warfare, explaining that human intuition, properly trained and augmented with technology, still outperforms fully automated systems in complex combat scenarios. The humans had learned this the hard way in their early battles, discovering that relying solely on technology left them vulnerable to unpredictable circumstances. It was a lesson, Lucas explained, that had shaped their strategy for generations. Imid listened intently, his antennae still flicking with curiosity. It was a concept that was difficult to grasp, the idea that human instincts could outperform even the most sophisticated machines. Yet, as he watched the humans in action, he began to see the truth in their words. It wasn't just their technology that made them formidable, it was their ability to think on their feet, to adapt to rapidly changing situations, and to rely on their experience and knowledge of warfare. Humanity's greatest military asset, it seemed, wasn't their advanced weaponry or their cutting-edge technology, but their sheer willpower, their weapons instinct, and their immaculate understanding of warfare. passed down through thousands of years of human history. The complexity of human warfare became clear to Imad in that moment. Their strategy was not just about brute force or technological superiority. It was about a deep, ingrained understanding of the art of war, a knowledge built on centuries of trial and error, of learning from failure, and of adapting in the face of adversity. It was this capacity for resilience, for innovation under pressure, that set humanity apart from the rest of the galaxy, and it was precisely why the Austrians had been drawn to them. Imad felt a sense of awe stir within him, a realization that perhaps he had underestimated humanity. They were not the naive or weak species he had once believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous, more resilient, and, perhaps, more willing to stand with the Austrians because they saw something in his species that no one else had. The surprise attack, as they continued their tour through the bustling military facilities, an unexpected shift in the atmosphere caught Imad's attention. The calm hum of the station seemed to fade as a sudden urgency rippled through the air. Crew members moved faster, their movements sharp and deliberate, as a voice crackled over the comms. The words were clear and chilling: Parsig Alliance assault confirmed. The station's tranquility shattered in an instant, replaced by the cold reality of the attack. Captain Lucas and Ambassador Rello, who had been walking beside Imad, immediately transformed. Gone was their casual demeanor, replaced with the focused intensity of seasoned warriors. They moved as one, seamlessly transitioning into their combat roles. Lucas's eyes narrowed with steely resolve, and his posture straightened as if he had become the very embodiment of human military discipline. Rello, too, was no longer the diplomat. His movements now echoed the precision of a tactician, his hands flying to control panels, relaying orders in swift, clipped sentences. Imad, however, remained frozen. His antennae retracted instinctively, as the gravity of the situation sank in. The Parsig Alliance, known for their aggression and thirst for dominance, had launched a direct assault on the station. The peace between species, so carefully maintained, had been broken. Imad's heart raced, but his body was slow to respond. This was not a drill, not some hypothetical exercise, this was real. The station was under attack, and the humans around him, who had only moments ago seemed so calm, were now preparing to defend not just their territory but their very existence. Imad could feel the station tremble under the pressure of incoming fire, the vibrations in the walls sending ripples through the air. Yet, what struck him the most was the unshaken calm of the humans around him. While other species would have panicked or faltered, these humans were prepared. They were ready. Imad could sense the quiet but intense coordination taking place around him as the humans mobilized their forces. The station's response was immediate and overwhelming. The once sterile halls were now alive with the frantic energy of military precision. Tactical alerts blared, and the sharp sounds of combat readiness echoed in the corridors. Humans rushed to their positions, their faces hard with determination. Their bodies moving with the ease of practiced professionals. There was no hesitation, no confusion. Imad could see it now, the unshakable confidence that had drawn his people to this alliance in the first place. The humans were not simply relying on their technology, they were relying on each other, on their sheer will to survive. Imad's mind raced as he tried to process the situation. The Parsig attack was not just a test of military might, it was a test of everything humanity had built, a challenge to their resilience and their commitment to their allies. As the station's defenses powered up, Imad felt an overwhelming sense of awe and fear. He had never witnessed such rapid transformation in a species before. The human response to danger was primal and immediate, and he couldn't help but wonder how his own people would react under the same pressure. The battle unfolded around them like a storm, a chaotic dance of strategy and survival. Captain Lucas and Ambassador Rello moved through the command center with ruthless efficiency, issuing orders to their teams and coordinating the response. The Parsug fleet, large and menacing, had launched a brutal offensive, but the humans didn't falter. Their military might, once thought of as a mix of primitive technology and advanced intuition, now revealed itself to be a formidable force. Imad watched, his antennae twitching with both fear and fascination. The humans didn't just rely on their machines, they fought as though the battle was woven into their very beings. Their bodies seemed to move in concert with their weapons, their instincts guiding them as they adapted on the fly. In the heat of the fight, there was no room for mistakes, and the humans, unshaken by the chaos, pushed back against the Parsec forces with an unwavering resolve. Imid's preconceptions about humanity began to shift. They weren't just a species with clever machines and efficient systems. They were something more, something alive with strength and resilience. Imid had seen civilizations crumble under the pressure of attack, seen alliances break in the face of overwhelming force. But the humans? They stood their ground, their unwavering focus radiating through the chaos of the battle. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty in their actions. It was as if they had already prepared for this moment, as if they had expected the Parsec to attack and were ready for whatever came next. In that moment, Imid understood something profound. The humans weren't just fighting for their station, they were fighting for something greater, their survival, their alliance, and perhaps most importantly, the future of the galaxy itself. The fight wasn't just about weapons or technology, it was about the strength of their people, their unyielding will to survive and protect what mattered. As the humans coordinated their counterattack with stunning precision, Imid saw firsthand the true meaning of human resolve. They weren't just relying on technology or brute force, they were relying on each other, their unity as a species, and their drive to protect what they held dear. The battle was far from over. But Imid couldn't help but feel a deep respect for the humans and the way they fought. In the heat of battle, their true strength was revealed. What had started as a diplomatic mission had now become a first-hand experience of the very essence of humanity, their resilience, their adaptability, and their unshakable commitment to their allies. And as the battle raged on, Imid couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of a new chapter in their shared history, a chapter defined not just by survival, but by victory and trust forged in the fires of war. The aftermath and revelation, hours passed in a blur, the steady hum of the station only now beginning to return to its normal rhythm. The ferocity of the battle had faded, and the Parsec fleet, once a looming threat, had retreated into the cold abyss of space. The station's systems, still heavily taxed by the attack, slowly began to stabilize, the power surges and defensive shields receding into background noise. In the silence that followed, the reality of what had just transpired started to settle over Imid like a heavy cloak. The humans had stood their ground, protecting their own and their allies, not by relying solely on advanced technology or automated defenses, but through sheer will and resilience. Imid sat alone in the briefing room once again, his antennae twitching thoughtfully as he reflected on the events that had unfolded. The room, once filled with a strange mixture of uncertainty and formality, now felt different. The cold metal walls and sterile design of the space seemed to have transformed. What had felt so imposing before now seemed strangely familiar, even comforting. The humans had shown him something he hadn't fully understood until this moment, a deeper, more profound reason why they had chosen to ally with the Austrians. They had never seen his species as weak. They had never dismissed them. No, the humans had seen something different, something valuable in the Austrians. They recognized the unique strengths his people possessed, the capabilities that others had overlooked. Imid's thoughts swirled as he processed the revelation. His antennae waved slowly in contemplation, each movement a silent acknowledgement of the clarity that had come to him through the heat of battle. Humanity hadn't chosen the Austrians out of pity, nor had they sought to protect them out of some misplaced sense of charity. They had embraced the Austrians because they saw them as equals, as partners. The future they envisioned wasn't one of division, but of cooperation, a future where different species, with their unique strengths and abilities, could complement one another rather than compete for dominance. This new understanding filled Imid with a sense of purpose and resolve. The alliance was not a burden to the humans, nor was it a temporary fix. It was a bond forged in mutual respect, in the belief that diversity, in strength, intelligence, and culture, was the true power of the galaxy. Imid's people had always believed in their own value, but in this moment, he realized that their worth was not defined by their weaknesses. It was defined by the unique attributes they brought to the table, qualities that, when combined with humanity's resilience and resourcefulness, created something far stronger than the sum of its parts. Imed's mind raced as he thought about how he would share this revelation with his people. He had come to this station seeking answers to why the humans had chosen to stand with them. But what he had discovered was far greater than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just an alliance, it was the beginning of a new era. An era where species, once divided by their differences, could now work together, understanding that their strengths, however different they may be, were meant to be shared. With a deep, steadying breath, Imed stood up from the cradle, his body now more at ease than it had been since his arrival. His antennae rose, and he turned toward the door. He had a mission to complete, one that was far more important than he had realized when he first arrived. The story of humanity's true strength and their vision for the future needed to be shared, not just with the Austrians, but with all species that were willing to listen. There was hope yet, and it lay in the cooperation between the stars, in the understanding that unity, not division, would define the future. As Imed stepped out of the briefing room and made his way to the communication systems, the weight of his task settled over him. But this time, the weight didn't feel oppressive. It felt like a duty, one that was worth fulfilling. And as he prepared to speak to his people, he knew that the message he carried would not only change the course of the Austrian species' future but would also ignite a spark of possibility in the hearts of others. This alliance, this shared vision of strength, was something worth fighting for.